loud and clear. So I'd like to welcome everyone officially to WSI's Digital Power Hour series. And today's webinar is entitled 5 Steps to World-Class Email Marketing. My name, as I said, is Cheryl Baldwin, and I'm the Director of Marketing Communications at WSI Corporate, and I will be your host today. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. As you know, everyone has been muted, so if you have any questions, just type them into that question box. We will be having a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And in case you missed something during the webinar and want to revisit, we are definitely recording this webinar, so don't worry, you will get a copy of this. And the WSI consultant or staff member that referred you to this webinar will provide you with that recording. So just in case you aren't familiar with who we are, WSI boasts the largest network of digital marketing consultants across the world. We have offices in more than 80 countries internationally and provide digital marketing solutions like website design and development, pay-per-click, search engine optimization, social media, mobile marketing, and of course email marketing to businesses of all sizes and across all industries. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, and joining me to present and talk about email marketing and share his insider secrets in producing world-class email campaigns is Ron Cates. Now, to those in the digital industry, Ron is actually known as the grandfather of email marketing, and not any reflection on his age or anything like that, but just because of how instrumental he's been to educating businesses on email marketing over the years. Ron is the International Director of Digital Marketing Education at Constant Contact, as you can see here. And in case you're not familiar with who Constant Contact is, they are one of the world's leading, if not the leading, email marketing platform for small and medium-sized businesses. They also happen to be one of WSI's premier partners. In fact, we've been working with Constant Contact to deliver email marketing solutions to our clients for over the last 8 years. So we have a great relationship with them, and I know Ron he's renowned on email marketing. He's very sought after. He's actually on a vacation right now. He's joining us from Vancouver, Canada, to talk to you about email marketing and share his wisdom today. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Ron to get us kicked off on our webinar. Ron?
Hey, thank you. Yeah, WSI, that's the only group in the world that would do this on vacation, but given how the great expertise they have and share, this is a privilege. So thank you so much for having me. As you can see from my photo from 1964, I am the person that invented Twitter. I was tweeting on paper way back then. If you can't read it, it says OMG, because I invented that too. Rode bike today without training wheels. The reality is, yeah, I did Photoshop that, but that is really me in 1964. And I look at that photo and I worry because that's such a serious young man. I worry about what he's going to be when he grows up, either a social media email guy or a serial killer, and I think we're all happy that it went this way. So next, 95% of us between the ages of 18 and 64 do email. So I read a few years ago, and you probably read it too because every bit of media picked it up. I read that email was dead. Now, it turns out that that quote was from Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO of Facebook, so maybe there's a bit of a conflict of interest. I also thought it was ironic that I received this notice in an email saying that email was dead. A few years later, I read that Facebook was dead, and a few years after that, I read the cover story of Wired magazine just a few years ago was the internet is dead. And I don't know about you, but I miss these funerals somehow because I'm still using these tools every single day. Now, I love social media, and I talk a lot about social, but the reality is email is the original form of digital social media. It's also how you come back and monetize other forms of social. I'm never going to follow you on Twitter if all you tweet out is buy my stuff, but we do tolerate some promotional content via email. So the two together really amplify each other. And I'd ask you right now, I won't bother to do a live poll, but how many of you have tweeted today? If I did this in a room of 1,000, there's about 4 hands that go up. Then I would ask how many of you have posted to Facebook so far today, and maybe a dozen hands go up out of 1,000. And then I ask how many of you checked your email today, and every single hand goes up. It is the preferred method of communication around the world still. So 95% of us are doing email, and we're pretty obsessed with it. On the average, we check it 24 times a day. Small business owner, 44 times a day. Small business owner while traveling, even more than that. And if you're a fine print reader and you think you got me, you say, well, that's 18 to 64. I've got clients and prospects that are 65 plus. Maybe that's the wheelhouse, a big engine in your business or your nonprofit. It turns out at 65 plus, it's the fastest growing demographic of any age group for adopting email. I mean, think about it. At 75, most people don't hop out of bed and say, I want to master PowerPoint, I better go buy a computer. At 75, this is often for 65 plus, email's the sole reason they own a computer is just to do email. I want to communicate with my friends and family, so I'm going to go ahead and buy a computer just to do email. The reality is at 75, they probably didn't hop out of bed, period, but you get the idea. Now, it turns out when it comes to mobile adoption, how many of us are reading email on our phone or our tablet, our mobile device? More than half of us are doing that, but the highest adoption age group is 65 plus. 67% of those 65 plus are doing email on their mobile device. So again, now today, instead of buying a laptop to do email, they're buying a tablet or doing it on their phone. Now, 18 and under, true. That is the lowest adoption of email. It's the number one reason they get an email address, though, when they're under 18 is not to join a social network, but it's to buy stuff online. So even though it's a smaller group, it's a very rich golden group. The sole reason they own an email address is to buy things. So it becomes kind of perfect for marketing. Sorry, just one second. I'm going to make this work, I promise. So when we look at return on investment for email compared to any other forms of marketing, I love every form of marketing. I really do. I'm a big fan of everything out there that can move the dial for business. But email still has the highest return on investment of any form of marketing. So last year in the United States, it was $39.40 for every dollar invested. Now, let's put this into perspective in real-life terms. What if there was a bank in your town, or let's say far away? I live in Phoenix, Arizona. So if there was a bank in Anchorage, Alaska, having a special promotion today, and for every dollar they give me, I turn into them, they're going to hand me $39.40 back, I'd be in line in Anchorage, Alaska, and you would all be with me. We'd be in the longest line in the history of the earth. We'd literally be chilling. And when I finally made it to the front of the line, I would take my new money and go to the back of the line and do it all over again. So phenomenal return on investment. And the reality is that's the average email. What's the average email you get in your inbox? Is it fantastic? Is it sent on the best time of day, the best day of week, the correct number of characters in the subject line? No. The average email is still pretty weak. So if the average email is getting this phenomenal return on investment, what happens if you do email marketing really, really well? Well, then the return is phenomenal. It's off the charts. So today we're going to talk about how to do it really, really well. We're not going to spend time on average. All right, step one, use best practices. Now, here's something pretty exciting. By the end of this webinar, you'll be able to do email marketing better than some of the world's most famous brands. That's a pretty lofty promise, a lofty goal, but I'm going to deliver. I have dozens of examples of huge companies with giant marketing budgets who still don't do email well. This one's from Audi. I'm just going to use this one because it's my favorite one, but I've got them from Nike and Chevron and Sears. I mean, you name it. But this one from Audi. Now, even though this is from 2009, it hasn't changed. The reason I got put on their email list is because I had just bought 2 new Audis. I'm not married. If you saw my picture, you know that just to get a date, I have to show up with car keys and flowers. But I bought two new Audis. I was put on their list, and this is what I get in my email inbox. Now, Audi's email marketing budget, their total marketing budget in North America is $900 million annually. I would ask, how many have a marketing budget that big, but I think I probably already know the answer. So $900 million, this is what I got. You can do email marketing, say, with Constant Contact starting at $20 a month and do it a lot better than this. So I got this in my inbox, and I'm going to deconstruct it because there's a lot of best practices as we deconstruct it. For one, you already know this, but most email clients, and when I say email client, I'm talking about the product, the software you use to read your email. So Outlook is an email client, Yahoo Mail, Gmail, those are email clients. By default, most email clients block images until the recipient says it's okay to see them. So best practice number one for email, Don't make your entire message rely on an image to convey the message. If the image is blocked, will the email still make sense? They failed here. All you can see, you see these red diamonds in the upper left. That's where the image is supposed to be. And if the images are blocked, really this email doesn't mean anything at all. So best practice number 2, which they also did not do, at Constant Contact, we allow you to put text behind your images. And if the images are blocked, they can see what you wrote there. So instead of just red diamonds, there'd still be the red diamonds, but it could say whatever you wanted to, like, hey, this is from Audi, please download images. So make sure that what you don't do is, behind your header logo, put the words header logo, for example. Put something that really tells where it's coming from so that it'll okay the images. Even the fine print at the bottom. Now, I read this because I saw the word Audi in it, and it's a good thing it had that, or I would have just deleted this. But even the fine print at the bottom, it's difficult to read. It's black text on a gray background. Reading speed on a computer screen is 30 to 40% slower than print. We have to do everything we can to make the email easy to read. And now with more than half of us reading on a mobile device, we have to make it even easier to read. So high contrast, dark or black text on a white or light background, a larger font, and even the font type matters. This is Times New Roman, which is great for print. It has those serifs, the curly cues. But it turns out that on a computer screen, that's a little bit more difficult to read than a sans serif font like Arial or Tahoma. So basically, they've done everything wrong that you can do with an email. So I'm going to go ahead and OK the image because I see it's from Audi, and I assume that it'll get better. All right, wow, this is, whoops, let me go backwards. Or Cheryl, can you go backwards for me one slide, please? Awesome, thank you. So once I download the image, this is way, way better. This is a beautiful, photoshopped email image, and it says, you should come in and buy this new car. This isn't the car that I bought. So now I'm starting to second guess, my purchase. And plus, I just bought a new car 3 weeks ago. I don't buy a new car every 3 weeks. I wait, sometimes 4 months, even 5 months before I buy a new car. So this is where they really fail when it comes to marketing and to email marketing specifically. One of the greatest strengths of email marketing is you can target what you send, and they don't do that. They take every email address they collect, they dump them all into one bucket, and they send the same message out to everyone. You already know that targeted marketing works better than any other type, so they should have a lot of lists. They should have people who bought a sports car, people who bought a luxury car, an SUV, people who came and didn't buy anything, people who came and bought 2 cars, and they should send a different message to each one of those groups. You know that targeted marketing works better than anything else. Email allows you to do that easily and affordably because it costs you nothing extra to have multiple lists in an email account. At Constant Contact, I could have 100 lists. And here's a neat thing. If you're on 10 of those lists and I send to all of my lists at one time, it automatically deduplicates. You don't get 10 emails at once. So I can target what I send. Now think about the power of that compared to any form of marketing, and I love them all. TV, radio, print. Let's pick on one. Let's make it TV because it's the most expensive. So let's say you had a big budget and you could do television advertising. With TV advertising, even with a huge budget, could you shoot 10 commercials and say, I want this one just going to these houses and this one just going to these houses? You can't. But with email, I can have as many lists and I can send this exactly where I want it to, and I can target what I send. With TV, do I know if they've watched the commercial or not? No is the answer. We have to do a poll later, a survey to find out. With email, I can tell you who opened it, what time of day, what day of week, and who clicked on what. Email, they can forward to their friends. You can't do that with a television commercial. I can even buy directly from an email, which I can't do with TV. So even though this is incredibly affordable, again, it starts at $20 a month. I can send to 500 customers as often as I like, and my total cost is $20 a month. Compare that to TV. Even though this is incredibly inexpensive and affordable, it has a lot of power that not very many other forms of marketing have. The biggest piece of email is that it allows you to stay top of mind. So even though your product or service, it might be amazing, we get more than 6,000 marketing impressions per day per person, more than 6,000. And we might love you, but we forget about you. We get distracted. We have a lot of things out there. So even if you did a great job, they might not come back to you, and it's solely because they forgot. Now, let me give you an example. How many of you have a restaurant that you really love, but you forget to go there sometimes? And I know it's not just me. But where I live in Phoenix, for me, it's Honey Bear's. And I don't know if you've ever been there. It's fine dining. Okay, it's not. It's a dive. It's a barbecue place, but it's fantastic. It's only 10 minutes from my house. But I would go somewhere else for lunch, and I'd come back and go, oh, gosh, I wish I'd gone to Honey Bear's, but I forgot. I was at a baseball game last year. I introduced myself to the people next to me, and guess who's sitting next to me? That's right. It's the owner of Honey Bear's. I'm like, oh, my gosh, it's the owner of Honey Bear's. He's like, oh, my gosh, it's that amazing digital marketing. He didn't do that, but he probably thought it. So we didn't talk about baseball at all. We talked about marketing. He said, I could do free fries and coupons and 20% off. And I said, that's not really a great strategy. That's just giving money away. So how about you do Southern folklore or barbecue recipes or grilling tips? As soon as I see the Honey Bear's logo in my inbox, I will salivate for a chicken sandwich. I'll drive over and buy it. It is truly that powerful. It's pretty amazing and phenomenal. Harvard Business School, you know, I love their research. They said that people will spend up to 69% more with a vendor if they have the perception of a relationship with that vendor. 69% more. Not just because they will shop more often, but they'll even pay a price premium. They'll pay more for the same thing to where you're no longer competing on price. And I trust Harvard Business School, but I guess I'm a skeptic. I thought, well, I would never do that. That must be everyone else. And the more I thought about it, I realized I do it all the time. I'm a pretty serious tennis player. I'm not real good, but I'm very serious. And there's a store in Scottsdale I go to all the time, all about tennis. And they know me by name. They string my rackets on the spot. They know what kind of shoes I wear. Now, I could drive around town, and I could save money on strings and shoes and rackets. Or I could go online, and I could save a lot of money. But I don't, because I feel like I have a relationship with them. So this really does impact you. We all have a place like this. I want you to become that destination. That perception of a relationship definitely happens through email. It's something as mundane. You say, well, that's a very personal item. That's your tennis stuff. Something as mundane as gasoline. In the U.S., you go to a four-corner intersection. There's 4 gas stations. And we'll decide which one to shop at, not based on the color of the pumps or the price, but who works behind the counter. If we feel like we know them and like them, that's where we shop. So email allows you to have that type of perception of a relationship, and the power to it is incredible. Let's talk about growing your list. For email to work, it needs to be permission-based. So, you know, buying a list fails. It almost never works. And now, of course, in Canada, with the new anti-spam laws, you can't purchase a list and use that. It has to be truly opt-in. So here's the reality. We know that you can grow an incredibly strong, powerful list organically the right way, and you can do it quickly. Now, I love this stat. 57% of consumers will give up an email address when asked. But then I thought about it. What's the average ask like? I go into a store, I go to pay for my purchase, and they'll say, you don't want to be on my email list, do you? So, you know, with that terrible ask, up to 57% are giving up an email address anyway. How about if the staff is trained to really ask well? And for that to happen, they need to look at this a bit differently. It's not like I'm asking the customer for something. I'm asking the customer, I want to give them a gift. You know, I want to give them this really great email that's filled with advice and tips and great information, and on occasion maybe even a promotional discount. So I'm trying to give the consumer something. I just need the email address to deliver it to them. So if your staff is having a hard time asking for email addresses, say, well, pretend you're giving away chocolate cake. If you're giving away chocolate cake, you wouldn't have a hard time asking every customer if they would like some chocolate cake. And then you need to deliver it to an email address. So the email that you're sending out is like chocolate cake. It's valuable. It's kind of delicious. And it has great information in it. And you're going to give away tips and advice and practical information right and left. Now, I already scared some of you because now you're thinking, I have to come up with content. The reality is you have content already. I don't care what kind of business you have. And I've been, you know, challenged on this in the most difficult way imaginable. I was at a seminar, you know, a couple thousand people in a room, and someone stood up and she said, I really get it, Ron, I do. It's not about just buy my stuff. It's about showing off my expertise and my experience, but I have nothing I could ever talk about. And I said, of course you do. Everyone does. You know, what do you do? And she said, I sell commercial plastic sheeting. And I thought to myself, wow, I just really messed up. But I've done this for a long time, and I'm good at it, so I know how to stall. I fibbed a little bit. I said, oh, that's incredibly interesting. How many types of commercial plastic sheeting do you sell? 26 different kinds. Really? What's the difference? And now I couldn't stop her from talking. oh, if you're doing this outside, you'd want this kind. It's antibacterial. But if you're doing this, you'd want this one. It's this thickness. It's this permeability. So, I mean, she had hours and hours of content. And if she shared some of that with me via an email, that shows off her expertise and experience, and that's why I would buy from her instead of going to a big box store and trying to buy it on my own. You know, we trust experts, so never be shy about showing off your expertise, and certainly don't be shy about using the expert label. I know we're brought up to be quite humble and shy, but the reality is I don't want to buy from the 7th best in the zip code. So let me know that you're really good at this and you've done it for a long time. Share intellectual property. People will eat it up and they will still buy from you. They won't go buy it somewhere else. That's less than 1% of the time. Show that you know more about this than anyone else does, and they will buy from you, no matter how long the buying cycle is. You know, I don't care if it's today, tomorrow, or if it's in 4 years. You know, I was in Detroit doing a seminar. I said, what's the toughest job I could have in Detroit today? And someone said, car salesperson. I said, okay, let's make it tougher. I'm a Toyota salesperson in Detroit. And somebody said, well, we should buy you lunch then because you haven't eaten in a while. I said, no, trust me, this would work. I'd want every email address in this room, and I would email you every month, and I would never try to sell you anything. I would do fuel economy tips, safe driving habits, and I don't care if it's today or 4 years from now or 5 years from now. When you're ready to buy, the bulb goes off, and you give me a call. It is truly that powerful and magical. All right. Let's talk about some of the ways to grow your list, some other ways. On your website, on every page, in a prominent location, and on a computer screen, upper left gets more attention than anywhere else. So if you want it to be seen, upper left is really important. Now, this may or may not be the most important thing on your website, but I want them to come back. You know, so let's say you've done some great SEO with WSI, and you're getting tons of traffic to your website. You know, if I come to your site and I'm not ready to buy today, I might go away and not come back. I might forget about you. So don't you want to capture me so you can make this a two-way street? I mean, of course you do. So this is for a tennis store. And on the upper left here, they have sign up now. And they even give people an incentive to sign up right this second. If you sign up right now, you get 10 tennis tips from Rafa. That's Rafael Nadal, one of the best players on earth. Now, with Constant Contact, there's a welcome email that you can have go out automatically when someone subscribes. And that could include, in this case, those 10 tennis tips. It could be a coupon, a discount, but intellectual property seems to have a lot more resonance with a consumer than even money does. They want to know that you're an expert. So today we're seeing a lot more pull with sharing intellectual property, with sharing tips and expertise and advice instead of even a cash discount. So upper left, a way that they can join our email list tag. Now, I even suggest you archive some of your emails, and if you're not sure how to do this, your WSI person can. Your consultant is an expert at all of this. They're amazing people. So archive some of your emails. That means you make web pages out of them, and then people can actually see your emails, what they look like before they subscribe. People are way more likely to subscribe if they see what they're going to get first. So by archiving some of your emails, that's a really easy way to show them. They hit that button, you can make a little index, and they can see what some of your emails look like, and then boom, join our mailing list. Same thing goes if you're doing just a paper sign-up next to the cash register. Print out one of your best-looking emails ever, put it in plexiglass and color right next to the sign-up book. People are more likely to subscribe if they see what they're going to get first. Now, with Constant Contact, they can also sign up via QR code. So you could have a QR code at the bottom of your cash register receipt, in posters in your store, or on your website. They can also text to join. In the U.S., they can do text to join, so you can make it real easy. You can put this anywhere they possibly connect. You can make it easy to join your list. We even have a Facebook app that's free. If I like you so much, I'm visiting your Facebook page. Wouldn't it be great if you could make this a two-way street, of course, so people can actually sign up for your email list right from your Facebook page. Forward to a friend. I mean, this seems like, well, old school, but it really does work. So this is by the way, this is an actual email newsletter from a small business in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm going to pick on it a bit. And it's not bad looking, but it has a huge flaw to it. Huge as a hint, and it's one of the first things we talked about. So this header logo is really tall. This header image is really tall. And if I'm using preview pane, and we know that half the people that use Outlook use preview pane, that's going to be a lot of white space if the image isn't loaded or it's just a lot of non-text space anyway. I want content to appear right away. People are enticed by content. So this would take up the entire preview pane, this header logo. So I would make this a lot smaller. Now, if you speak pixels, the ideal header image is probably around 250 pixels tall. If you don't speak pixels, let's say 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch or so. And if you don't speak inches, not tall. I want it to be not tall because I want people to see content right away. I'm also going to make it easy to forward to friends. Now, by default, there's a forward email link that goes at the bottom of the emails. You can put it anywhere in a constant contact email you like. Up top is going to get a lot more attention. So you will double your forward rate by putting it up top. You will double it again with a polite command. This is very generic, forward newsletter. A polite command will double it. So something like please forward to 3 friends or please forward to 3 colleagues will double your forward rate. And if you call out to it in the text, you'll double your forward rate again. Now, before you get too excited, a good forward rate is only about 0.5%, but that's not insignificant. That's email list growth without spending any money or doing anything. But if you do all the things I just told you, I've had months as high as 6%. So, put it up top, a polite command, really call out to it. Now you're thinking, well, between 4 and 6% is a great forward rate, and even that's not exciting. You're wrong, because once your list gets big, that's huge list growth. Now, I did everything to grow my list I showed you in the last 10 minutes. QR code, text to join. When I started working for Constant Contact, I started my new email list, my personal list. I remember 8 years ago, my very first send, this is emblazoned in my brain, I had 1,055 subscribers to my personal list. Today, 8 years later, doing just those things, I've got more than 1.5 million subscribers to my personal list. So this really does work. And forward to a friend at between 4 and 6% list growth, that becomes a phenomenal thing once your list size is large. All right, increase reach of your existing email. So this is pretty phenomenal, but your email can now be shared on social networks by the recipient. Now think about that for a second. 5 years ago, how would that be possible? You send me an email, I love it. If I want to share it with my friends on Facebook, what do? Copy and paste it, or invite all my friends to come over and have a look at it? So we changed our platform years ago. We knew that social was going to become a powerful tool. So we have what's called the social share bar at Constant Contact. And the recipient, once they receive the email, can share your email on their social networks. They can like it on Facebook. They can share it on Twitter. There are more than 300 social networks they can share it on just by clicking on a button. And we're seeing a huge increase in reach because of this. So earlier we talked about the average return on investment on email, and it's humongous, right? It's an amazing $39.40 per dollar, and that's on average email, not even on great email. So we're seeing an increase in reach of up to 60% by including the social share bar. And by the way, with us, this costs you nothing extra. And it's also trackable. So later we can show you how many times it was liked or shared on Facebook or Twitter. 60% increase in reach. So we already have the highest return of investment of any form of marketing with email. And adding this bar increases that by up to 60%. I mean, I can't imagine why you wouldn't do this every single time unless you're some sort of clandestine organization. So really powerful tool. We also allow you to easily share it on your social networks as the sender immediately just by clicking on a button. And essentially what we're doing is for every email you create, we're creating a web page version of that email where it's rendered exactly the way you created it, and that web page version is what's actually being shared via these links. All right, so in your email settings, you can also share this on your social networks. We call this social sharing at the bottom, easy share. So it allows you, once you create your email, to share it on all your social networks. And with the feature I showed you last, the recipient can share it on all of theirs. So we know that on the average, you've got about 240 friends on Facebook. So it's easy for you to share it with all of those. And you want to make it easy for your recipient to share it on all of their networks as well. So you got to think about your marketing today. It's a little bit different in the past. We're no longer marketing just to individuals, but to individuals and their entire networks. And if you think that's not powerful, who's your very best prospect? It's somebody just like your customer. And who do they hang out with? People like them. So your very best prospects start with your current customer base. We always start marketing, even acquisition marketing. We start with our current customer base because that's where true acquisition comes from, especially powerful acquisition of great prospects. All right, improve your data collection. So when they hit that link, whether it's in an email or on your website or they got it via Twitter, we want they get this window that we host for you, but you have complete control over. So there are a couple pieces to it. For one, you can collect any demographic information you like. You can even make it mandatory that you have to give it to me to become a subscriber. So if I wanted to, I could say you have to give me your email address, your social security number, and your credit card number, and of course I will get no subscribers. Now here's what we know when it comes to collecting demographic detail. I'll give you 4 fields, and then fatigue happens. So never ask for more than 4 things or you'll lose subscribers. If you make any field mandatory, you will lose subscribers. And if you ask for personal information, you will lose subscribers. I would give you my first name, I'll give you my zip code, that's it. So I know that you want a lot more than that. I'm just going to tell you this is not the place to ask for it because you'll lose them as a subscriber entirely. Now you can also, the other big piece of this is you can, out of all the lists that you have, you can make any list you want public, and they can actually sign up for the list they're most interested in. So if I was a travel agency, I could say I've got, are you interested in cruise vacations, Alaska cruises, Caribbean cruises? Now here's the issue. People are not good about categorizing themselves, so publicly I'm not going to give them a lot of choices. So I'm going to have a lot of lists behind the scenes, but publicly on the sign-up I'm only going to have a few. Broad choices, people are not good about categorizing themselves, I'm going to make it simple. You might even give them frequency here though. Do you want to get the monthly newsletter or our weekly specials? That way if they're on the weekly special list and they don't want to get email from you that often, instead of opting out completely, they could opt out of the weekly specials but opt into the monthly newsletter. So you can even have frequency right here. My bad. All right. So if you want to get a lot of demographic detail, and we know that we cannot get it through email sign-up, here's this really neat workaround. Put on an event. In 2014 and 2015, live events are supposed to be incredibly powerful marketing opportunities. People are taking social media full circle to where it's actually coming back to a face-to-face meeting. And this could be something incredibly inexpensive. It could be a tour of your facility. It could be just a social get-together. When people sign up for an event, use our online registration tool at Constant Contact. We have one. And when they sign up for an event, their mindset is entirely different. They'll tell you everything: height, weight, shoe size. They'll tell you all these things that they will never tell you when they sign up for email. But when you do an event and you use our event tool, that automatically populates your email database at the same time. So you get all this great demographic detail that you can use to delineate your lists with email, and then you can send out very targeted email based on the data that you've collected. Monetize it. All right, so how often can I send email? That's the top question I get. And the number 2 question I get is, how much promotional content can I get away with? How much buying? I want to sell some things, so how much promotional content do I dare send? And nobody wants to touch this question, but I'm going to. I'll go speak at seminars and conferences where there are only marketing professionals in the room, and I'll get a really wishy-washy answer like, well, it depends. So I'm going to tell you that both those things, how often you send it and how much promotional content you can get away with, both of those things vary directly with the strength of the relationship. That's why I have more than one list. Where it's a strong relationship, a regular buyer, or for a nonprofit, a regular donor, I can send more often and I can send more promotional content. If it's a weaker relationship, a prospect, I'm not going to send as often, and I'm going to send more educational content. There's your simple rule. So for the tennis store, I'm in there all the time. I'm a regular customer. I'm a fan. They could send me something like this every single week. Here's the new shoes, strings, rackets, click to buy, and I would think that was awesome. I love knowing about all the new stuff that might make me a better player. Now, if you went in there one time ever to this tennis store 6 months ago just to buy some tennis balls one time, and you got this every week, you were going to hate them. You're going to think they're a spammer. So where it's a weaker relationship, more of a prospect, like in that case, I'm going to send something like this. This is a real constant contact email, and it's a monthly newsletter, and it has tennis tips. There's a really good article on how to improve your forehand. Now, I almost don't care, almost being the key word, where you got your list of tennis players from or how protective they are of their email inbox. I think they would like this. Here's a really good article on how to improve your forehand. And there's no promotional content in it. There's no, click to buy or, buy it here. Now, you will notice that at the bottom it says click to continue. I don't give them the entire article. It says click to continue. I give them some good stuff, get them interested. Click to continue takes them, of course, to my website. And if they volunteer, if they click of their own free will to come to my site, everything just changed dramatically, night and day different. I'm not invading their inbox with promotional content. They're choosing of their own free will to come to my website. You bet I'm going to sell to them there. I'm crazy if I don't. This is pure marketing gold. On my website, when they come to click on that link, I'm going to have the entire educational article, but right next to it, adjacent to it, I'm always going to have promotional content related to the educational content right next to it. So on the right sidebar, did you know the type of strings you use can have a big impact on the power of your forehand? Click here for string specials. Pure gold. This is one of the greatest ways and most powerful ways to monetize email marketing is a landing page on your website, educational content related to promotional content. Get it delivered. So we know that today, that spam's become a really big issue. And a lot of small businesses become what I call the accidental spammer. They'll go out and they'll buy a list because with traditional marketing, that works. With traditional marketing, if I go buy a list of physical addresses and I send you mail, you go out to your mailbox, it's filled with junk mail, you don't get mad, you just throw it away. So a lot of us have tried to apply that same notion to email marketing, but the reality is digital marketing is night and day different. We're incredibly protective of our email inbox. And if you send to me without permission, or if you send to me too often, if I gave you permission but forgot that I gave you permission, if I don't like your content, to me you're a spammer. Now, I can't even say that word and make it nice, like I love doing business with that spammer. So I don't want you to become the accidental spammer. I want this to be permission-based. But when it comes to getting stuff delivered, bulk emails become incredibly difficult to get delivered because there are so many spammers out there, both accidental and purposeful. America Online webmail is still one of the most popular email clients on earth. America Online gets 2 billion, that's with a B, 2 billion spam emails into their system every day, 2 billion. So they're the toughest to get delivered to. Now, my guys at Constant Contact who handle deliverability and compliance, they keep bragging about how great our deliverability is. We know that commercial email gets blocked. Around 20% of bulk email gets blocked. Now, in a good month, we're less than 1%, and a bad month is around 2%. So I did a test 8 years ago when I started, and it worked, and I wanted to see if it still did. I went into Constant Contact, and I created first my free America Online webmail account. I went into Constant Contact, and this is the subject line I created: free spam Viagra sale, multiple exclamation points. Now, when you're going to decide if can this get delivered or not, there's a couple ways you can do that. You can go to this service called Spam Assassin at spamassassin.com, and don't write this down because I'm going to give you a much better shortcut. And you can run their 700 spam tests, see what your score is, add it all up, and see if you're likely to get blocked or not. Or in Constant Contact, you can click on one button, the spam check button. Can you go back for me, Cheryl? Thank you. You can click on the spam check button, and you can see that on this one, even with the subject line, it said it's a low risk of spam. This is probably going to get delivered. And the reason we can make that claim is because the big ISPs, the ones that really matter, like Gmail and Yahoo and America Online, they don't really care about the subject line. That's what small ISPs or small delivery systems care about. What the big ones care about is where it's coming from. And if it's coming from a server address they have confidence in, it gets delivered. So most of our email at Constant Contact with big ISPs is what's called whitelisted. It means it just gets through automatically. So even though it says here, I have a really low risk of this getting blocked, that's hard to believe. So I tested it. I sent it to my America Online webmail account. Boom, went right into the inbox. And I did this 2 months ago, by the way. This is current. Goes right into my inbox, doesn't get caught up or put in a spam folder. Same thing on MacMail, same thing on Outlook. So using a service, any service, and there are many of them out there besides ours, but using any service will get you better deliverability than trying to do this on your own. The ISPs now know that most of the big spam problems are certainly not coming from the big services that provide it like ours. They know that Constant Contact is very much anti-spam. We don't want any spam email to exist. We want just your real marketing stuff to exist so that it works. They know we're anti-spam, so our stuff gets delivered. And I was asked to go till 20 till, so I have 20 minutes for questions and answers. Ask away anything. I know this is pretty fast.
Great. Thanks, Ron. I'm just going through, I know there's been some questions. Maybe I'll have you start off with just talking a little bit about whether you can share any of the recommendations and or the support and resources that are available now that there's this CASL anti-spam law out in Canada, and how that kind of affects a little bit about the permissioning that you have to get.
Yeah, so for everybody in Canada, as you know, recently the CASL legislation, Canadian Anti-Spam legislation, was introduced. I just did 2 seminars live in Toronto over the last 6 weeks. We have experts here, but then go to the Constant Contact website, constantcontact.com. We actually have a CASL hotline. I don't have the number in front of me. I apologize for that, but maybe we can even put it in the follow-up. We have a CASL hotline, a toll-free number where we'll answer all your CASL questions. Rather than go through it, because it is kind of detailed on this webinar, you can get your answers there. I am going to tell you that I don't see this being a huge issue for marketing. Actually, I kind of like the legislation. The biggest difference is you cannot buy a list. That's no longer illegal in Canada, and as it still is in the United States. So in the United States, we have anti-spam legislation as well, but it's not very strong. So you can still buy a list in the U.S. and use it legally. You cannot do that in Canada. So if you're in Canada, or if you're delivering to Canada, you're delivering email to Canada from the United States or anywhere else, you need to be CASL compliant. And I'm going to recommend you go to our website, constantcontact.com, and go to the CASL hotline to get your questions answered.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions and you are currently working with a WSI consultant, they have access to all these same resources through our partnership with Constant Contact. So feel free to drop them a line. There's a little bit more explicit permissioning that you have to get from people now if you're emailing to or from Canada. So just be aware of that there is some compliance there.
Yeah, bottom line, I would go to my WSI person, because they're really familiar with how CASL works.
Great. Some questions here on would you ever recommend using video in an email?
Absolutely. We know that there's up to double the engagement if there's video in an email. Now, when I say video in email, I have some qualifiers. There's more than one way to put video in an email. One way is you can embed it, and that's a bad idea. Because one, it's not going to get delivered. It's going to get stripped off. It's going to look like spam because the footprint's so big. And two, very, very few desktop-based email clients could even render or play that video. So the workaround sounds technical. The workaround is you do a screen capture of the video and you have that as a clickable link. Let me make it simpler for you. In Constant Contact, it's so easy to put video in an email. It's ridiculous. You take your video, you put it on a free hosting service like YouTube or Vimeo. In Constant Contact, you just click on a button, and it goes out. It does a screen capture automatically of your video. It puts it into the email. When the recipient clicks on the play button, it plays it. So it's just so simple, it's ridiculous, and it has huge power to it. Those should be, by the way, no longer than 90 seconds long, and 30 seconds or less tends to get better engagement.
Great. Ron, do you know offhand, through the social sharing application in the Constant Contact platform, which social sites people can automatically share newsletters with?
Well, there's more than 350 on there now. So
okay.
I can say confidently, every major one, and even obviously many minor ones. The reality is there are more than 1,000 social platforms already today. But if you look at the top 25 as far as traffic goes, we have all those on there.
Great. And so can you just...
By the way, we constantly monitor as well. So anything on the horizon that's gaining traction, we add. We update all of our software on a regular basis, no less frequently than every 60 days.
Great. Can you maybe speak a little bit to some of the practices that is in place within the platform to help people not being flagged as spam? Like, I know you've got the spam checker there. I think there's some good, review of lists and stuff that you guys do as well at your end.
Yeah, so there are a lot of things built in to make us CAN spam compliant in the States and CAUS compliant in Canada. So, for example, both those legislations require that you have a physical address in your email. So we require that you have a physical address in your emails. You can't send from us without having included that. Another thing they both require is that your reply address be a functioning email address. So before you can use a reply email address with us, we check it to make sure that it's active. So we'll send a link to it you have to click on to prove that it's still an active working email address. So the reality is neither bit of legislation is incredibly complicated. They're just trying to make sure you're not out there buying lists, spamming people. They want to make sure that people can opt out easily. Both require that you have a conspicuous opt-out mechanism. And if someone asks to opt out, you have 10 business days to remove them. We have a button in every single email that they can click on and opt out automatically, where you don't even have to do anything. Now, I know a lot of marketers think, well, wait a minute, if they can opt out of it, we want to hide that. We want that down at the bottom. We want it to be gray on gray text because we worked really hard to get these subscribers. We don't want them to opt out so easily. It turns out that when you make it easy to opt out, when you make that a prominent link, you're less likely to get opt-outs because you're not hiding it. It turns out that it's really powerful for keeping people. What's missing in a spammer email is an easy way to opt out. And by making it simple to opt out, if you send me an email somehow 1 month and it's kind of slack and I'm like, oh, not that exciting, oh, look, it's really easy to opt out, I'll give it another month. You're not going to have 2 Slack emails in a month, so it works to your advantage. And if they're truly not interested in anything I have to say, and they're not interested in my business, there's no reason for me to be emailing them every month anyway. I'd rather have a small list of engaged consumers than just a bunch of people on my list for no reason.
Great.
One thing we didn't get to spend much time on, so the from line today and the subject line have huge impact. People are making decisions based on the subject line without even opening the email. So never get rid of your do not opens. We know today that about 31% of the do not opens are taking action on the email just from seeing it in the inbox. And I'll give you a real life example. That same tennis store that I go to all the time last month sent me an email, 40% off clearance shoes this weekend. That was the subject line. I didn't open the email, but I was in line on Saturday. So the ideal subject line, if you want to get right to the bottom line, the ideal subject line is the one that tells you exactly what's in the email. That's it. No big secret. Tell me exactly what's in the email. And make it short. It needs to be concise, 35 characters or less, including spaces. I'm never going to read your long subject line. And today, subject lines are getting truncated, shortened on mobile devices. So make sure if it gets shortened, will it still make sense, or does it become something foolish? And I'm seeing big companies fail at this all the time. So my favorite example still is last year from Neiman Marcus. I got one that said, winter fashions you can't afford to miss. And in my mobile device, it says winter fashions you can't afford. So that might be truth in advertising, but it's probably not the message they intended. So if your subject line gets shortened, will it still make sense?
And are there any general, like, in addition to subject line, any other things that you see that from a delivery standpoint where it folds down to the day or time that will represent
let me give you 2 things. So one, the from line has more impact than anything else, the from line. 60% of us decide whether to open the email or not based on the from line. And if you think, well, it's from me, so what options do I have? The reality is there are 2 pieces to from. There's the from name and the from email address. And not every email client displays both. So if you use Outlook, that's great. You'll see my name and my email address in brackets, but not everybody uses Outlook. It is not the most popular email client on earth. Even America Online Webmail gets more usage than that does. So America Online Webmail is one example, drops off the from name, and only displays the email address. And other email clients do the opposite. So if I send it from my really big company or my really big organization is the from name, and that's dropped, and all they see is the email address, and I'm using ron1958 at yahoo.com. If that's all they see, they're not going to open it. So both pieces need to be branded, and the from line and the from email address and the from name had better clearly indicate who I am. I strongly recommend you buy your own domain name, your own .com or .whatever, rather than use a Yahoo or Gmail. We also know that if it comes from a real person at something.com, it gets opened more, even if they have no idea who that person is. So if you send it from mail.at or news.at, then that's not going to get open nearly as much as if it comes from a real person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the time of day and day of week do impact both open rates and click-throughs, but I can only, it's very specific by industry. So I'm going to give you some general best practices. Middle of the week tends to work best, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The open rates are almost identical across the days of the week today, but we get better action on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I love 10:30 in the morning. I love 1:30 in the afternoon. Here's why. I come in at 9, and I get spammers work nights and weekends because my inbox is full of stuff. And even things I want to look at, I'm sort of interested in, I'm so busy, I defer those to later. I come back later. I'm so busy, I delete all that marginal stuff. I want it to arrive at a time when you can look at it. So I clean out my inbox at 9. Your email arrives at 10:30. I can probably spend some attention on it. Same thing at 1:30 after lunch. But your mileage will vary. I mean, if I owned movie theaters, I'm going to send late Thursday night or late Thursday afternoon with a link where you can buy your ticket before you spend your money somewhere else on Friday. So test. Cut your list in half and send out half Tuesday at 10:30. Send half whenever you think is best. And that's how you can determine. We track all of that for you. It's easy to go look at the stats.
Great. Question here specifically is from Donna, and she says, do you have any advice for prospect emails? So the one-off emails to sales prospects, and the best way to introduce your company to them and also comply with some of these new CASL regulations in Canada.
Yeah, so if it's CASL, they have to have opted in explicitly at some point. They have to show some interest and get an email from you. Now, so the only gray area of CASL around that is I could send a one-off email. I mean, literally, from Outlook, like a personal email, and I can invite them to sign up for my email list. So I haven't put them on a list of regular receipt, but I'm inviting them to opt in. I don't think this is a bad tactic, by the way, especially for any sort of gray list that you have. Rather than dump them into an email list and make them opt out, that's just going to make them angry, and it's not CASL compliant. Instead, you send them a one-time personal email. Hey, we're doing this really cool thing on a regular basis. You don't want to miss out on it. Click here to opt into it. I think not only is that better received by the recipient, it's going to get more action than doing the opposite, and it is CASL compliant at the same time. So invite them to opt in rather than dump them in and make them opt out.
Great. There's a question here kind of on, a lot of times people are being told that their best performance is when they laser target a specific list, but they also know that they have to generally build their list. When is the right time to start segmenting your list into specific groups and sending special emails out?
Yeah, so I try to migrate people into different lists based on action. So for example, with Constant Contact, and here's a great workaround. When someone clicks on something in your email, we report on that. We tell you every item you have that was clickable, who clicked on what and when and how many times. But here's something that most people overlook. We have a feature where with one button, you can make a new list out of everybody that clicked on something. Now, let me give you an example. If I had an email and it has different articles in it with click to continue, the people who click to continue, I now know exactly what they're interested in. So I can make a new list out of them. Or even very product focused. For information about this product, click here. Wow, I know exactly what product they're most interested in. So with one button, I make a new list, and later I do a follow-up email targeted exactly to that interest. And you can even take that a step further and go more old school, but I've seen businesses do this twice in the last month where they sent out a really strong offer, and they said, call up for the offer. So they got a lot of calls, and they were able to sell a lot of the offers. They waited a week, and they called up everyone who'd opened the email but had not called them up. They got 32% of them to sign up because they knew it was a hot lead instead of a cold lead. There was already interest there. There was a base level already.
Great. So I think we're going to wrap up. Ron, any final thoughts on your end just that you want to leave people with?
Well, one of the neat things about this, so again, I certainly don't want to be pitchy. There are many great services out there, but one of the things I like about Constant Contact is we do offer a free trial that is really, truly free. So you don't have to stop at the end to not get billed. You don't even give up a credit card. You try it for 60 days, you see how it works, and if you don't love it, you just go away. So there is zero risk. And they go to constantcontact.com and sign up for that, or go to constantcontact.com and call the toll-free number. We'll even give them a free coach to help them get started. And ideally, they're going to go through their WSI consultant, because then all these best practices will be built in by their WSI consultant. They won't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, and the consultant can offer you a lot of great guidance just in general of what Ron talked to you about as well, in addition to having the platform.
They can tie it into social media and your website and so many other things. They can improve your SEO with email. So there's a lot of nuances here that it would take that level of expertise to understand, and they have it.
Great. So just as we kind of finish up, just in case you guys aren't aware, we have WSI has written about, I don't know, Constant Contact has a book out just on email marketing in itself. But WSI wrote and published a book late last year, on the 12 things every business needs to know about digital marketing. We have a chapter specifically in there on email marketing, so if you're interested in learning more or want some more reading, you can definitely find that on any of the major online book suppliers. I'd like to take this opportunity to first thank Ron for taking time out of his busy schedule and his much-needed vacation for being with us today and sharing his wisdom on email marketing. So thank you, Ron.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, everyone who attended. I love WSI. I'm a big fan. I love what they do. So follow me on Twitter. It's Ron Cates, RONCATES.
Great.
I only share cool stuff, I promise.
And I'd like to say a thank you to everyone on the webinar today for attending. I know your days are busy, and so it's really great that you're committed to your ongoing digital marketing learning as well. We love to hear what's going on around our webinars and how you like them, so make sure that you complete our webinar survey, as well as we do have a complimentary marketing guide on some email marketing best practices, so take a look at that. And if you visit WSIWorld.com in our resource area or our blog area, we got a lot of content on email marketing on there right now that you can look into. Again, as Ron mentioned and as I've mentioned, any questions you have after this webinar or anything to do with email marketing, reach out to your WSI consultant. We are partners of Constant Contact, and we do have the ability to get you on Constant Contact and use one of the leading email marketing platforms out there. So take advantage of all that they can offer you as it goes to their wisdom and the platforms that we can provide. So thanks again to everyone. I hope everyone has a great day or evening, depending on where you're at. And hopefully we'll see you again next month on our Digital Power Hour when we're talking about mobile marketing. So thanks all and have a great day.